So have a nice day to all of you. That you all are welcome to the seminar series that conducted by the CDCE of University of Canania under the business economics session. I think that you all have some sort of idea about the under business economics, basically about the microeconomics section, all right? So that already covered most of the concepts and the theories and the sessions which comes under the microeconomics. So basically the demand and supply, then the under the consumer behavior, marginal and the marginal utility theory and the indifference curve analysis. Then the under producer behavior, production theory, cost theory, and under different market structures, perfect competitive, monopoly, monopolistic competition, oligopoly, all already covered under microeconomics. Then if we move to the macroeconomic side, that we have to concern about the basically the macroeconomic issues under the introduction also that we are discussing about. Some major issues like the inflation, unemployment, business cycle, GDP. So all these things, then with that, next we'll move to identify the national income. Right, national income model also that we focus about with regard to two-sector economy, three-sector economy, and the four-sector economy with the calculations of multiplier and the things, right? But if we consider about the macroeconomics perspective, so more weightage goes to the microeconomics, but you have to compulsorily have to answer at least one question from the macroeconomics, right? So that when we consider about the structure of the paper, so that basically, and I think then previous seminar series also that I already mentioned about some idea about the paper structure. Normally that we already followed the same structure which we already followed last time also. That first part, the compulsory part, that may comprises MCQs. Right? Then the normally the paper will consist basically three parts. First part, second part, and third part. If you refer the previous past papers, that you can have good understanding about the paper structure, right? That basically the first part will that you have to answer as a compulsory part that may be consist MCQs. Then we consider about the part one that basically lies on the macroeconomics, right? That macroeconomics that and more weightage also. More weightage also goes to microeconomic side, right? So then you can select question number, any number of questions from both parts. But anyhow, that at least we have to cover. We have to select one question from each part, right? So that two parts will consist of microeconomics and macroeconomics. Then the part that means the part B, A is the MCQs. Part B relate to microeconomics, and part C relates to macroeconomics, right? Macroeconomics. Then from micro and macro, at least that you have to select one question from each part, but number of questions may be a little bit comparatively more in microeconomics, because that normally in our syllabus, so that more focus to micro, right? Even though the macro also equally important. Then under macroeconomics, national income also, that most of the students who already did economics for their A levels, normally they already have idea about national income, inflation, unemployment, all these things. But no one knows about, unless you are undergraduate, right, about the ISLM model. So therefore, that may be a little bit more important than the other um, other subjects, so other topics, other topics which you already learn. Because ISLM, the model is somewhat new for you. Then have to be fully concentrate on ISLM, that is the extension, right? ISM model is the extension of the national income, right? So first, that's why first that we have to complete about you should have to study and have to have a complete understanding about the national income model, and then we'll move to identify ISLM model. Then the extension of ISLM model as extension of the ISLM model, that we have to learn about the SAD model, aggregate demand and aggregate supply model, right? So that ISLM, so that basically relates. The I means investment, S means service, right? So that L means money demand, and I means money supply, right? The liquidity, L means liquidity, and the what you call M is money supply, right? So that I means investments, and S mean savings, right? Then L means money demand, liquidity. That therefore that we got the word the first letter of that L, and this MD, that means money supply, right? So that you can see the ISLM model. If we consider about ISLM model, the IS relates to goods and service market, right? That we derive IS curve with relate to goods and service market. But if we consider about the LM, so the LM that we derive with relate to the money market, right? With relate to money market. So then if we consider about the ISLM model that already discussed. So through that you can have idea about IS is related to goods and service market, and the LM is related to money market. Then through this ISLM model, so what we are going to examine basically the goods and service, the two markets, right? One is the goods and service market, other one is the money market, right? Money market. So then I think you may have the basic understand about what does mean by the ISLM model. So through the ISLM model that we are going to examine, the equilibrium of the goods and service and the money market. So we here consider goods and service market as a one market, right? Goods and service market. So goods and service market and the money market equilibrium. So that we are going to consider about the fiscal market. That means the goods and service market and the financial market, that is monetary or money market, right? so that goods and service market and the money market equilibrium will reflect by the ISLM equilibrium, right? So that IS, the curve investments and service, the IS curve that we can derive with relate to goods and service market, and LM money demand and money supply. So the LM curve we can derive from the money market. So that having that idea, we'll move to the next slide, right? So that under introduction that clearly explain the Keynesian approach. So actually the simple Keynesian model that you already learned about the national income, right? So the national income model, that is actually the simple Keynesian model, or that national income model means it relates to only the goods and service market, right? Only the goods and service market. In the case, the equilibrium analysis, both product and money market have been carried out in isolation of one another. So that because the Keynesian, simple Keynesian model that you already discussed about 2-sector economy, 3-sector economy, and 4-sector economy, likewise about the equilibrium with relate to goods and service market only. So under the goods and service market, or under the simple Keynesian model, that we didn't discuss about the money market. We consider on about how do we calculate the national income by summing up the consumption, investment, government expenditure, and the foreign influence, export minus imports. Then through that only we calculate the national income. So here we consider only the goods and service market, right? We not much concerned about the financial or the money market, because the Keynes assume that the both markets are independent, right? Both markets are independent, so they will work out independent manner. So that means isolation of one another. The Keynesian analysis of the product market equilibrium assumes there is no change in money market, right? And also that will, even though there is some change in the money market, they will not have any impact, over goods and service market. So that's why under the Keynesian model, they already assume the activities or the operations which relate to goods and service market, right? But so again, it explain it not affect the equilibrium of the money market and the money market equilibrium also. The Keynesian analysis, they consume two markets. That means the here the goods and service market, here the money market. Both market will work out independently, right? So product market, if we consider about the product market equilibrium, the product market equilibrium will determine through only product market. There's no any influence from the money market. And if we consider about the money market equilibrium, so there are also the money market equilibrium will determine only through the money market operations. There's no any impact from the goods and service market because they assume that both markets, both goods and service market and the money market will acts independently, right? Independent. But and also here again the introduction continues. The Keynesian didn't identify the relationship between money market and the goods and service market, right? That he pointed out that about two markets operate independently, right? Independently. That here that he determined the national income didn't consider the interest rate and money demand and money supply. So that because he assumed that there's no any influence from the money markets to determine the income level of the goods and service market. But against to that idea, right? Against to that idea, you know that different economics, like if we consider about the evolution of economics, for the previous theories or the previous ideas, there may be a lot of criticisms from the other economics groups. So that's how then how the economics is evolved, right? Through different criticisms and argument, right? So then here for this concept also, that what is the concept? The Keynes assume that all the market work out, operate independent. So for regards to that idea, J.R. Hicks, Hans and Jones, right? J.R. Hicks, Hans and Jones, right? Hans and Jones already argue there is an interdependency, not independent, not independent manner, but there's an interdependency and the interrelation. Interdependence and interrelation between two markets. What are the two markets? Goods and service market and the money market. So between these two markets, there's a interdependency and the interrelationship. So that so how? Then we'll see. And we'll see how there's an interdependency between these two markets. So maybe sometimes this part, so because that you don't have the deep understanding about. So, but if you already have understand about these two markets, definitely at once that you can grasp or understand whatever the things I am explaining. But if I believe that still you don't have much idea about those two markets operations, right? Two markets operations, then after I teach you, then you can come back to the presentations again. If you read it again, then this slide maybe you can understand very easily, right? But now if you have some sort of understand about how these two markets operate, definitely at once that you can understand what I am saying, right? So here, what here J.R. Hicks, Hans and Jones explain, those two markets are interrelated or operate interdependent manner, not independent, interdependent and interrelated, right? So those two markets are interdependent. So how those two markets interdepend? So we know that if we consider about the money market, right? So if we consider about the money market, through money demand, through money demand and money supply. This is money supply. Then I will explain why the money supply lies parallel to vertical axis, those things. Then how the money demand curve shapes or it lies from left to right. Likewise, right? So that you just assume this is the money supply curve and this is money demand curve. Through money demand and money supply, that we can determine the interest rate of the economy, right? Interest rate of the economy. So then if we consider about the goods and service market, how we determine the national income. National income may be the, if we consider about the three sector economy. P sector economy, that is C plus I plus G, right? C plus I plus G. So then if we consider about this investment, right? So that you have to keep in mind, this is somewhat key important, right? Very important point that you have to remember, right? That how the ISLM model uh, extend or treated as a extension of the national income, right? Extension of the national income. So that under the national income model that we calculate, or simple Keynesian model, we calculate the national income as C plus I plus G. So here we consider the investment. This is the investment. So the investment will not change. Investment as autonomous. You know that what are the under the national income that we identified, what are the autonomous expenditures. What are the autonomous expenditures? Or exogenous variables and the endogenous or induce. Autonomous and induce. Right? We call the Swayatta and Parayatta in Sinhala. Right? So autonomous expenditures. So autonomous expenditures mean that will not change. That will not change with the other variables. So that will not rely, depend on the other variable. So if we consider about the autonomous consumption, then the autonomous investment, then autonomous government expenditure, and then the exports. So all these transfers, all these lump sum tax, all these concepts we identified, or the variables we identified as the autonomous, though that will not change with the other variable. But if we consider about the simple MPC, marginal propensity to consume, and the income tax, MPC, then the MPM, marginal propensity to imports, all these things we consider as the induced variables, because if we consider about the marginal propensity to consume, MPC, so marginal propensity to consume directly change with the income. If we have higher income, definitely MPC may be increased, right? So there's a positive relationship between the income and MPC, right? So then when income change, that will directly affect to change consumption, right? MPC. So, but autonomous investment, that even though we earn or not, that is not change with income, right? If we earn or not, that we have to change. We have to consume, not the change, we have to consume, right? So therefore, that is autonomous. That is not rely on our income, right? As well as if we consider about the government expenditure. So the government expenditure also, that also treated as the autonomous, right? Autonomous variable, because that even though we or not, that we have to incur some amount as government expenditure. So likewise, if we consider about the previous, so if we consider about the right, or if we consider about the autonomous expenditure, then investment also under the Keynesian model, investment also considered as an autonomous expenditure. So that means the investment will not change. Investment will not change with the other variable. But as per the argument of Hicks, Hans, and Johns, they argued when we are deciding investment, definitely that we have to think about the interest rate, right? So interest rate, therefore the investment. So further the investment not considered as the autonomous expenditure in ISLM model. So the investment, therefore the investment will vary with the interest rate. But we can have an idea about that. Investment may be the I bar minus BR. Right. So the autonomous investment, and that may be changed with the part may be changed with the interest rate. Therefore, when we calculate the income with related to goods and service market. So how we calculate income in simple Keynesian model that we use CIG if we consider the closed economy. But now that we have to consider that may be changed, the investment I should be changed as I minus BR plus G. Right? So likewise, they explain the investment. The investment may be changed on the interest rate. So that interest rate with this is with related to the goods and service market. No? Goods and service market that we are by referring to goods and service market that we are calculating the national income, right? So that and if we consider about this goods and service market, to determine this investment, we need definitely the interest rate, right? Interest rate. So that interest rate we determine in the money market through money demand and money supply, right? Through money demand and money supply. So therefore, definitely good and service markets has to rely on the money market, because through money market, right? Through money market that will determine the interest rate, right? So through money market, interest rate to determine national income with related to goods and service market, because one component, investment is one component when we calculate the national income. So that investment is rely on interest rate. That interest rate will determine in goods and financial market, the money market. So therefore, definitely good and service market has to rely on the money market, right? Rely on the money market. On the other hand, not only the goods and service market, the money market also. The money market also has to rely on the goods and service market. How? So that you know that when we are deciding money market equilibrium, that we need money demand and the money supply, right? Money demand and the money supply. So to determine this money demand, specifically that we need to determine money demand, normally the transaction and the speculative motive, directly change with the income, right? Directly change with the income. Therefore, to have understand about the money demand, definitely that we want to know about the income, right? So from where that we can calculate the income, the national income can calculate from goods and service market. So therefore, to determine money demand of the money market, definitely that we have to know about, we should have to have good understand about the national income. National income which determine in the goods and service market, right? Goods and service market. Then we can have good understand about how goods and service market and the money market interrelated each other, and how they interdepend each other, right? So then with the idea of that, we'll move to have understand about the extension of the income expenditure model, right? And the simple Keynesian model, there's an interaction. May this explain? There's interaction between the product market and the money market, right? So to derivation of the ISLM equations, we want to have the idea about the interaction between these two markets. So why we need to have idea about the money market and the goods and service market. So that ISLM represent for investment, investment and savings, and liquidity or money demand, and money means money supply, right? Money supply. So that here this interest rate through ISLM model, right? Through ISLM model, that we can have idea about the national income of the economy, or the interest rate and income, right? Through ISLM model, and we can have idea about the economy interest rate and the income, right? So here that you know that Keynesian cross model, or the simple Keynesian model, that we trade the goods and service market, and we can derive the IS curve, and theory of liquidity preference, or the money market, we can derive, right? Goods and service market IS curve, money market LM curve, ISLM model, right? That, as I explained earlier also, the extension of the simple income expenditure model, or the Keynesian model, we can have idea about we can form the ISLM model, right? With the ISLM model, that extension of the ISLM model, extension we can identify as the ASAD, right? Aggregate demand and aggregate supply, right? Okay, then first, with the understanding of the ISLM model, right? So what does mean by the ISLM and ISLM model? Then how those two markets interdepend, that we can understand about now in detail about the goods and service market, right? Goods and service market. First, because we already have a good understanding about the goods and service market with relate to income expenditure model, or the simple Keynesian model. But as I said, there's some assumption already released, right? Some assumption already released with relate to ISLM model. So what is that assumption? Under the simple Keynesian model, that we believe the investment held constant, right? Or investment considered as the independent or autonomous. Independent, autonomous, or exogenous variable, right? Exogenous variable. But in this model, ISLM model, that we consider it as a indigenous model or a induced variable, right? Induced variable. So what is the difference between the exogenous and the endogenous? As I explained earlier also, that exogenous means that that variable not change with the other. The like the autonomous consumption, investment, like that. But if we consider about the marginal propensity to consume, then the MPM, so income tax, that may be changed with the income, right? So that is induced. Here also that we consider one part of the investment already induce or change with the other variable, right? So example that so investment is spending to add assets. Normally that we know that invest means that we already invest to spending on assets that typically firm borrow to purchase investment goods. So the higher the interest rate, such borrow is lower the profit, and therefore less they will be willing to invest. So that means if we consider about the relationship between the interest rate and investment, right? So if we consider about here that for the easiness of understanding, I will draw it again, right? So in when we are labeling two axes to consider about this may be the interest rate, right? There may be different textbooks referring the different letters that may be R, O, I, right? R, O, I. Then here should be the investment, right? Investment. Now there's inverse or negative. Inverse or negative. Negative relationship between interest rate and the investment. So that means when interest rates increase, the investment will decrease. What it means? So means that you know that most of the time that we invest through borrowings, right? Through borrowings. When the borrowing interest rate, so when borrowing interest rate is high, when borrowing interest rate is high, then we'll invest lower amount, right? We'll invest lower amount. Therefore, when the R is higher, we invest maybe only 100. But that means at 10%. But the government decided to decrease borrowing interest rate up to 5%. Right? Up to 5%, then the investors have chance for more borrowings, because that means that we have to pay to purchase to borrow 150 lakhs, that we have to pay only 5%, right? 5%. So therefore, then the borrowing interest, when the borrowing interest rates rise up, definitely the investment may be go down, right? That's inverse relationship or the negative relationship between the investment and the interest rate, right? Investment and interest rate. So therefore, we can have understanding about how there's inverse relationship between these two variables. So that's why explain about the interest rate. So B means the sensitivity to interest rate, right? Investment and the sensitivity. So then how can we derive the IS curve? So that after having idea about the basically the relationship between the investment and the interest rate, right? Investment and interest rate, that will move to have idea about the derivation of the IS curve, right? So the IS curve will derive, IS curve will derive through goods and service market, right? Goods and service market. So that we know that here that if we consider about the this example, this is the 45-degree line where the E is equals to Y. And if we consider about the expenditure line, right? With this equilibrium point, we can find out the 1 point to draw IS curve. So then if there's any change of the autonomous expenditure, here already change the investment, right? Due to change of the one of the autonomous variable, the expenditure will move to upward or downward, right? So then here that due to the increase of expenditure, that the curve will shift to upward, and we can have the new equilibrium point as here, Y2. Right? Then by joining these two lines, the equilibrium points, right? By joining the equilibrium points of goods and service market, equilibrium points of goods and service market, and we can draw this IS curve, right? We can draw this IS curve. So there may be that you have a question why the IS curve lies from left to right without having negative slope. Why it's not goes like this? Because you know that there's an inverse relationship between interest rate and the investment, right? Inverse relationship. Due to this, IS curve also has negative slope, right? Has negative slope, and each and every point lies on this IS curve. Will reflect the equilibrium points of the goods and service market. Therefore, in other words, we can have idea about how can derive IS curve. The IS curve will reflect all the equilibrium points of the goods and service market. So by joining all the equilibrium points of goods and service market, we can draw the IS curve, right? Here again the derivation of IS curve. So by taking equilibrium points, right? So that IS curve shows the combination of IS curve. Then IS curve is a combination of interest rate and the income, right? Interest rate and the income. So that that first deriving of IS curve divided into two parts. First, you have to explain why investment and the interest rate has negative relationship, and then you can secondly that you can derive the IS curve, right? So that's about only the IS curve. Then you should have good understand about the derivation of IS curve and the derivation of the equation of IS curve, and also that by combining these two markets together, that goods and service market and the money market, mini market, that you should have the ability to calculate the national income and the interest rate, right? Interest rate. Then we'll move to with the idea of the goods and service market. Having idea about the goods and service market, we'll move to the money market, right? When if we consider about the money market, the money market equilibrium, right? That you know how to get the IS curve which relate the goods and service market equilibrium. So that now we are moving to identify. How can we derive? How can we derive the LM curve? Right? LM curve which relate to money market. Right? Which relate to money market. For that, we want to have understand about how we identify the money market equilibrium, right? Money market equilibrium, because that we want to know about the derivation of the LM curve. How can we derive a derivation of LM curve? To derive LM curve, right? We want to know about the money market equilibrium, so that you know that when the equilibrium occurs where money demand and money supply, where the point money demand equals to money supply, we can have the money market equilibrium. So for that we should have to have idea about the behavior of the money demand and the money supply. Now first we'll see, we want to have understand about the demand, right? Demand for money. So that demand for money, I think yes, demand for money. Then if we consider about the demand, there's different schools of thoughts already presented their ideas in different manner, right? So that if we consider about the classicalist, right, like the ACP group, Wim Fisher, Alfred Marshall, so that sort of people. So people already believe that as per the classicalist viewpoint, they argue that They argue that the people will keep money. People will demand money. People will demand money only for the purpose of transaction, right? So they already have only the transaction motive, right? Only the transaction motive. So what does mean by this transaction motive? So for the day-to-day, for day-to-day transaction, so to purchase goods and services, to purchase whatever the things, right? Whatever the things that you need to purchase, for those purposes, only the people will keep money. So here the transaction motive actually, they consider not only the transaction purpose, but also the precautionary um, motive as well, right? So precautionary motive means actually here that we call in Sinhala Ganujanu Chetanava and Arakshana Chetana. Transaction motive and the precautionary motive. So the precautionary motive that people normally will keep money for the emergencies, right? For the emergency purposes. I think I know, right? Speculative. Yeah. Yes, people will keep some money with a view of that is about the speculative, right? Yeah, actually the transaction motive and here the transaction and the precautionary. Transaction motive means that people keep money for day-to-day transactions, routine transaction. For consumption, especially to purchase goods and services. Likewise, for day-to-day transactions, they will keep money. So other than to that, as per classical view, other than to that, for the precautionary, precautionary means that if there is an emergency, say for example, the people want to spend for the death of the member of the family. Or maybe sometimes if someone if feel with some sort of illness, they want to take medicine for that purpose. So likewise for the emergency purposes, for the emergency purposes, the people will keep money. Then as per the classical's viewpoint, why people keep money for the transaction motive and the precautionary motive. But against to that idea, right? Against to that idea that Keynes already explained that the people will demand money not only for only those two purposes, right? Only those two purposes. He already introduced new motive as speculative demand, right? Speculative demand. So that speculative demand means actually that people will keep money, right? The people will keep money to invest in the financial market, right? The people will keep money to invest in near future in the financial market. The cost of holding money is the current interest rate. Why? Because people keep money in their hands without depositing it in the bank, right? But without, what is the purpose of keeping the money in hand? That they want to invest in near future in the financial market. Maybe to purchase treasury bonds, maybe to rupee the securities. So likewise, there may be different purchases to invest in the financial market. They will keep money, but keeping money in hands, that's opportunity cost. That opportunity cost is that they will lose the deposit interest rate, because otherwise keeping money in hand, they can deposit their money in the bank. That interest rate, that interest may be therefore lose, right? So that opportunity cost of holding this money for the speculative motive is the interest rate, right? Deposit interest rate. So therefore, there's an inverse relationship, right? There's inverse relationship between interest rate and the speculative motive, right? Speculative demand. Why? The MSP, we label it as MSP. So why there's inverse relationship? So for example, if the bank interest rate nearly 30%, definitely the people will not keep money to invest in near future, right? To invest in near future. So because now the banking will pay higher demand, deposit interest rate, higher deposit interest rate. Therefore, people will deposit money in the banks without keeping money for future investment. But the interest rate, if the interest rate decrease up to 2%, the people will keep a lot of money with them without deposit in the bank with the purpose of investing in near future in financial market. Therefore, there's inverse relationship, right? Inverse relationship between MSP. MSP means speculative demand for money. Speculative, right? Inverse relationship between interest rate and the MSP. But if we consider about, as per the classical history, right? As per the classical history, they said that people will keep money only for two purposes. That means transaction purpose and precautionary purpose. Transaction purpose and precautionary purpose. And therefore, there's what sort of relationship here? What sort of relationship? So there's a positive relationship that we can identify. There's a positive relationship between the income and the money demand. When we have a higher amount of income, when we have higher amount of income, so definitely that we will keep or we will demand money for consumption, or like we'll spend more money on consumption. If we have higher income, definitely we'll consume more, right? And also we'll keep money for the precautionary purposes also, right? Then when the income increase, the speculative and transaction motive will increase. There's a positive relationship between MT, right? MT and the income. Then how can we derive? How can we derive the money demand curve? Money demand curve, because there's the two different viewpoints. The one is according to the classical view that they explain. That's a positive. MT, interest rate, Y, income, and the MT. Right? And there's an inverse relationship between interest rate and the speculative. Inverse relationship, right? So as I explained, then when we draw the one curve, that we need two axes. But if we consider about here, there's here the y-axis and here the money demand, classical view. Then if with relate to the Keynesian view, here the interest rate and money demand. So then we need two axes here, but three variables: income, interest rate, and MD. So that here we consider in one axis as MD, and the other one we consider not the income, but the interest rate. Interest rate. Right? So therefore, that that if we consider about the classicalist idea, they said that there's a positive relationship between income and money demand, but not with the interest rate. Right? Therefore, if we consider about the classical transaction and precautionary motive, there's no any relationship between with the interest rate. Right? With the interest rate. Therefore, it lies parallel to this vertical axis. But there's an inverse relationship between the interest rate and the MSP. By joining those two curves together, that we derive MD curve. MD, therefore, that we can have MD curve like this. So, MD curve, here the interest rate is the MD. Right? So, this part is there's no any relationship between the interest rate and the money demand. This part we identify therefore as the classical range, right? Classical range. But after that, there's a inverse relationship between MSP and interest rate. So that this part we can identify this is Keynesian range. Keynesian range. And intermediary, that these two parts we can identify as the intermediary range. Intermediary range. So likewise that we can identify three ranges in one money demand curve. Here there's no any relationship with the interest rate because as per the classicalist idea, the transaction motive and precautionary motive will change with the income, not with the interest rate. Right? Therefore, with the interest rate, there's no any relationship. To show that one here, there's no any relationship between the interest rate, that straight line lies parallel to vertical axis. But after that, according to Keynes, by joining these two perspectives together, we draw the money demand curve. Total money demand, MT and MSP, right? MT and MSP. So here, this part we can identify as classicalist range. This part as the Keynesian range and middle part as the intermediary range. Right? This is the money demand. But money supply is very easy. Money supply means that already decided by the central bank. Right? Central bank or the money authority, so that it lies the constant value. So whatever the amount determined by the central bank, that we have to treat it as the money supply. Then if we consider about the money market equilibrium, this is the money market, this is the money supply, and this one is the money demand. Then through money demand and money supply, while considering the equilibrium points, this is money demand, this is money supply, while considering the equilibrium points of the money market, right? We can draw this LM curve. So then now you already have idea about the equilibrium point. Equilibrium point of the ISLM. This is the how we derive IS curve with regard to goods and service market, and how we derive the LM curve with regard to the money market. So this is the ISLM equilibrium, right? ISLM equilibrium. So equilibrium is the goods and service market. Here the equilibrium in the financial market. So therefore, the ISLM equilibrium, right, may be shown Not maybe show the equilibrium point of the goods and service market and the money market, right? So I think that you already have clear idea about the determination of the ISLM equilibrium. Then through next seminar series that I will wish to talk with you about the changes of ISL equilibrium and the impact of fiscal and monetary policies. Okay, so then have a nice day. We'll meet from the another seminar series.